All right, I'm going to do my best to show how I use the pressure pot. Although I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a little bit tricky just because of how things are in the shop right now. But I have some of this Alumilite Quick Coat Epoxy, which has a working time of about 20 to 25 minutes, tack-free in 4 to 8 hours, full cure in 24 hours at 70 degrees, and it's not 70 degrees out here, but I still have more than enough working time to pour it into the molds, get it under pressure, all that stuff. So what I'm going to do is the mold on the right that's slightly grodier is going to not be pressurized. It's just going to be left out at ambient conditions. I'm literally going to pour it, set it into the back of the spray booth here so it's out of the way when I grab the pressure pot, and that's all that's happening. The one on the left that's cleaner is actually going to get put into the pressure pot, pressurized to 50 psi, and they're both going to be left for the same amount of time, and then we're going to pull them out. So this one is tricky because there's a small area that the resin has to get down through, or the top of the barrel will not come out correctly. So this is a really, really good example of where having a pressure pot can really help with reliability. So let me mix up the epoxy here, and then we'll get started. And for anyone wondering, yeah, this is more resin than what I actually need. I have some other molds I can pour it into, so that doesn't hurt. And then these are some really cool silicone beakers that I grabbed off of Amazon, which is nice because the Quick Coat Epoxy will actually stick really, really well to these small little mixing cups that I bought off my job when they were closing. And the urethane that sets really quick, which I'm not using for this because it would probably set up before I could get it into the pot on camera, it will not stick to the plastic for some reason, which is, go figure, resins are weird like that. So just gonna mix this up a little more. And yes, I know there's gonna be air holes in here. In an ideal world, I'd also have a vacuum chamber, but I barely have room for the pressure pot to begin with, so clearly that's not going to happen. And I'm intentionally not going to fill it up all the way to the top because I have that longer working time, and I know that there's going to be bubbles that are going to come up with the weight of the resin pushing down. So you can already see a bubble forming right there. Plus just the residual bubbles in the resin itself. Now, I will definitely say for parts like this, if you don't have a pressure pot, a slower curing resin is not a bad idea. It's not a fail-safe, but it can help. So you can see already some of the bubbles coming to the surface. And some of those, like I said, are just residual bubbles from the resin itself. But a lot of that is stuff that's coming up as a result of it pushing itself down to the mold, which is what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carefully move this guy to the back off screen because you already kind of saw things. I'm going to move this guy and grab the pressure pot because we are racing the clock here a little bit. All right, I've got the lid on the tank. Sorry for moving quick. It's because of the heat. I've got it just snugged down on the clamps. Double check them because it'll kind of settle. So we're going to set this up to 40. All right, I'm back. Sorry, I was trying to pour the excess resin in, but pretty much what you can see is there's going to be a little bit of residual resin in here. So what's nice is this can sit and it acts kind of as an indicator for the state of the resin curing. Now, when it comes to pressurizing this, whoops, you'll notice that I initially did it up to the 300 kPa mark, which is just a little bit above 40. What I found is when it's filling, it kind of takes a second to stabilize And I'm well aware that there's probably a minor leak somewhere, either in my plumbing setup or I just don't have the sealing ring tight enough. But as long as it's holding pressure well enough to where I'm not noticing the needle going down like that, I don't worry about it. In my experience, it still works well enough even if I pull the thing and it's at like 30 psi hours later. Obviously, I understand you don't want it to leak, but I'm also realistic. If it's working, I'm not going to sweat it. Now, one other thing I will say is a friend of mine had a really good suggestion, and that is just to get one of those disposable inline air dryers from like Harbor Freight or anything like that for spraying, because especially on a humid day like today, when you're compressing the air, you're also compressing the humidity. And if you're working with moisture sensitive stuff, like especially like a urethane based resin, you don't want extra moisture in there. You want as little as possible because it will cause it to foam up. So that's that. But I'm going to let this and everything else that I poured sit for the next few hours to cure. Then we can come back and pull it out and see what the results are. All right, it's a couple hours later, and judging by the fact that I can't get the resin to come out, nor the fact that touching it with my gloved hand is doing anything, I think we're good to remove it. So let me vent it down and we'll open it up. All right, with the tank pressurized, I can just come along and undo the clamps for the last two. I kind of like to alternate it because what'll happen is the lid, I'm exaggerating it, but it'll get kind of tilted like that, and then it's an absolute pain to remove. So lid out of the way. It's definitely a lot harder doing this with the camera in the way. And right off the bat, whoops, that was one of the bubbles popping. That's pretty funny. Right off the bat, you can tell this one looks a lot more clear. There's a lot less visible bubbles than the guy on the right, although there is a bubble, but we're not going to worry about that. So let me get the pot out of the way and we'll actually take a look at them. All right, as before, dirty guy on the right is our control. Cleaner one on the left is our pressure pot. So let's get them popped out and see what we got. I am genuinely curious. Now, I will definitely say that a pressure pot is not the end-all be-all. Definitely vacuum degas is a really good idea as well. But for what I'm casting here, it's working for the moment, although I would love a vacuum chamber when space allows. So these guys set up over here. So there's our pressure pot, and then this is our, oh yeah, you can definitely tell already. There's one of them that has a, two of them have a bad edge. Now, to be fair, they are usable if you wanted to simulate more like a falling apart barrel, but if you're trying to go for a not falling apart barrel, you wouldn't want that. Okay, so you see what I can do. I'll probably overlay some photos, but let me grab the worst offender just for the sake of the video. But you can see on the edge there's that whole area that's missing. Definitely less than ideal. We've got 2, 3, 4. So 4/5 of the non-pressure pot pours have problems. And yes, this is definitely a bit more of a viscous epoxy, but still, the problem with the thinner stuff that I have is it sets up really, really fast. So you'd kind of have the same problem in a different way. Well, if we go to the pressure pot ones, those two look really good. That guy looks really good. That guy also looks really good. And that guy also looks really good. So we have 5 out of 5 versus, what did I say, like 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, something like that. So yeah, definitely the pressure pot really helps. Now I will say for flat items like these sacks over here, which I'll pop out real quick, things like this are actually quite easy to get a decent cast of, and this one has a little bit of bubbles, but I was also nearing the end of the pour time for it. But something like this where it's thin and it has a lot of space to vent the bubbles out usually does fine. But if you really want to hedge your bets, if you need something crystal clear, definitely pressure cast it and or vacuum chamber it. But I hope this helps a little bit with, you know, why I built the pressure pot. Now, as for these castings, for those who are interested, the idea behind this is it's a barrel that has some, could be either coal or limestone or charcoal or really whatever you want, that's kind of more of a rocky-like material. And I think I have one that's painted right here. Makes a really good addition to a layout. So if you are interested in these, I will have them linked in the description below in the Etsy shop if you fancy them or want to support the channel or anything like that. So hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna get out of here because it's like 96 degrees. I'm cooking alive. See you here next time on Make It with Calvin.